Lomteji, who is the next speaker in line. They have been interacting for long, so we'll give him the gist later to both Thomas as well as Nicholas. So Subhash Lomteji and then Ajay Singh ji and then Asit Das ji. सर आप अभी इधर आ जाएं बाद में आने के बजाय. आशिदा आप इधर आ जाइए. बाजी शुरू करें. आशिदा अभी सेशन चल रहा है, उसके ये 3 स्पीकर्स हैं और उसकी डिस्कशन पहले ही कर ली थी हम लोगों ने. अच्छा. हाँ, तो ब्रीफ डिस्कशन करेंगे. हाँ, आप आराम से आइए. अभी सुभाष लोमटेजी बोलेंगे, फिर अजय और फिर असित दास. उसके बाद आपका सेशन शुरू होगा. सुभाष जी.
Friends, I will be very brief because many people have said many things and I don't want to repeat. But one thing which I want to emphasize, here I don't want to or I don't wish to criticize anybody, but according to me, Gandhiji was a political activist and assessment of his whole work should be done in that perspective. And you all will agree that whatever he has written in Hind Swaraj, he himself has endorsed it after 30 years and majority of things are relevant till today. And when I say that his perspective was totally political, and not only of our country, but he was his thoughts were he was thinking on a global level, which we can see through this is Hind Swaraj, because he has raised many issues and he has attacked all ill practices in our country, and he hasn't stopped there, but he tried to give the solutions to all those things. According to me, he has no doubt gave some short-term solutions, but his thinking was for perpetual and long-term solutions, or I will say that a different, just, sustainable, ecologically sustainable development paradigm, which in 1908, when he wrote in Hind Swaraj, whatever we are speaking since last 20 years, ill effects of globalization, and no political party is thinking in that direction today also. And that's why I think he should be assessed in this perspective. He want to change the society, as well as his thinking about the development is that everybody must get the fruits of those developments, and at the same time this planet should survive. I think this is a unique understanding or the unique perspective which present political parties, they are lacking all these things. Though everybody takes his name, but the perspective and his core thought is totally absent. I think this much I wanted to emphasize at this.
Thank you, Shivaji. I know that Shivaji has many more things to say, but for one, because he was facilitator of the famous event which happened in Mumbai, which was seen as path-breaking event in the World Social Forum process. 2004, he was the mobilization committee facilitator, and post that his is the only town, Aurangabad, where social forum continues very regularly, and people from diverse backgrounds come and engage in political actions. And the other important part of him is that he is able to bring in all shades, including the Marxists, in that action platform. But his own position is that we should have a national platform who will be committed to reduce violence in the society and pursue their means through non-violence. And we make this platform with this value as explicit, so that not much time is invested in debating a perennial question of violence is necessary to make really a pure revolution. So this debate can be avoided easily when we make making the society non-violent as the central and explicit agenda. But thank you very much for being short also. This was need of the hour. I now request Ajay ji, and after that Asit ji. अजय जी, आप थोड़ा परिचय फिर से दे दीजिएगा, सुबह वाला भूल गया होंगे लोग, आपने सिर्फ सेवा मंदिर बताया था.
So no, I speak in the context of being associated with work in the voluntary sector in a small part of the country in southern Rajasthan, but it's a work that's been going on for over 4 decades. I haven't been associated that long, but going back into the history of this, I would call it maybe a slight aberration, but for 4 decades, it's had sort of uninterrupted space and resources to try out certain ideas. And looking back, a lot of them, I think, would fit into the Gandhian framework of constructive work as bringing about social change or certain kinds of ethical politics. And I see the relevance of these experiments in the context of, if this is an assertion, maybe a lot of people will agree that mainstream politics, administration is disruptive, divisive, and of the social fabric, but also of environmental resources. And in some sense, the institutions of the state are broken. I mean, they are not functioning well, and yet most of our politics, activist politics, is presuming on a well-functioning state, the rights discourse. So in that context, I want to share a little bit about what Seva Mandir has learned, or what perhaps one can distill from these 4 decades of experimentation. So I would say one set of experiments were centered around the idea of collective action. Can you get the state to deliver more? People have entitlements, and the state is in a sense obligated to sort of provide for those entitlements. And so that was attempted. Can people from deprived backgrounds enter into politics, into the Panchayati Raj system, the village democracy, and will that sort of lead to better outcomes? And that was very much something that was tried out in the decade of the 70s. And in some sense, a lot of people got co-opted. Those who went into positions of authority became part of the system. And the system itself, at that time and even now, was not in a position to respond to a number of local needs. It was not bad intentions, but they were just not geared up to responding meaningfully. So that kind of experimentation with collective action led to a certain shift in focus, and there was a period in the 80s when there was a lot of money coming from the north. It was money that was allowed for autonomy. It was money which came with a certain long-term perspective. So that led Seva Mandir to enter a phase of very systematic constructive work, and that meant running schools, early childhood care centers, doing a lot of work on the environment, work with women, work on livelihoods. And the presumption, at least in the 80s, was that, if you do that along with people's participation, and the area in which Seva Mandir was working was largely poor peasants, tribals, 70% of the land was in the nature of common property resources, that, as opposed to the state, people would manage these resources better. And as opposed to the state, people associated with NGOs would be more dutiful, more motivated to sort of provide services that were needed, and there would be a greater deal of sort of responsibility in managing these various interventions like schools and health interventions and early childhood care. And even though, as I said, Seva Mandir didn't have a constraint of resources, it didn't have a constraint even of manpower, we were able to recruit people who were professionally competent. We didn't get the response that we thought we would get. People's participation didn't quite play itself out the way it was assumed to, what was assumed of it. And the reason for that was partly there were certain contradictions internal to local communities. They too were tempted by short-term benefits. They too were tempted by opportunities to privatize the commons or encroach the commons. Many of the people who were service providers, whether they were in Seva Mandir or from the villages, were also ambivalent about how much they should perform their duties in terms of turning up every day to run the schools, or turning up every day to run these balwadis or early childhood care centers. And so, in a funny way, there was a certain realization that you couldn't presume on people sort of being self-governing. You couldn't presume that people naturally, because they were from deprived backgrounds or because they were in a sort of artificial condition of an NGO, would necessarily sort of do a better job than the state. I mean, they were, and that led to yet another phase, which was really to, and this is where I think Gandhian ideas come in. So there were two options. One was that, look, whatever is going wrong is essentially because the state has contaminated civil society, and unless we can reform the state, nothing much can be expected of civil society, because the contamination was so deep and pervasive. And the other alternative was really to look for flaws within our own functioning. What is it about us middle class, lower middle class people, or what is it about poor peasants that prevents them from acting in a kind of more responsible way? Where is that self-governing capacity? Why is it missing? What's not there? And I have to say that by looking inward as opposed to outward, and I won't go into the details, but I would say that over a period of time, we did find the resonance to that self-governing capacity. More and more people who are within the Seva Mandir staff, they also felt a certain competence. These were investments made that they discover the joy of doing a job well, so also the villagers recognize that this kind of piecemeal management of common property as private property was self-destructive, that in the long run it was just going to lead to a disaster. They had that realization, but in sort of reminding them that, look, you can't have your cake and eat it too, there was a kind of awareness, yes, we can't have our cake and eat it too. And so slowly one found that there was a kind of a change and a sort of willingness to kind of treat the commons as commons and not to privatize. And I would say at this point, and these are sort of early signs that there is a certain kind of change of relationship vis-a-vis the larger political structures, where there's more non-cooperation with the benefits the larger political structures provide, which are irresponsibly given. So the larger political structures will say, if you have encroached on public lands, at some point we will regularize it. Or they will say that here are a number of welfare benefits. Of course, to get them, your loyalty should shift upward. They should not sort of be horizontal. And the benefits will not necessarily go to everybody, but it will go faster to those who are more aligned to us, whoever happens to be in power. And so there is a certain element of people now not accessing those kinds of benefits. So there's a certain kind of non-cooperation, which again has resonances with Gandhiji. And so what I'd like to say is that, and some of this is being manifested in relationship to the panchayats, where panchayats are now voting for, I'm using Seva Mandir, it could be any agency, for Seva Mandir to use the NREGF funds, this Employment Guarantee Act funds, because they've seen that when the panchayats use it, the perspective is more as patronage and less as building the commons. And now there is a kind of confidence that yes, the commons can be built. It could be in the nature of watersheds, pasture lands, forest lands, and so on. So what I want to say is that and this is a question I pose to everybody here, that given the fact that our mainstream politics is degenerating, for whatever reasons, there are a number of reasons, maybe it's about competition for power, and therefore in order to come to power you have to be sometimes irresponsibly populist. We need to look for other forms of politics which are more ethical, and I'm making the claim that the instrument of constructive work, which is doing things together, allows people to come together across caste, class, gender, communal distinctions. So in these villages where we are working, there are a number of castes present. There's a small smattering of, say, people from different religions. Of course, there is a gender, this thing. And so one is beginning to find that when people work together, they do sort of transcend what are the normal political divisions of how you think about coming to power, one group playing off another group. And so what I want to really say is that the discourse of self-governance, the discourse of looking within for what is it that really makes one accountable before one sort of challenges the larger power structures, and they can go simultaneously. But as I said in the beginning, the initial response to just redistribute power without an ethical conception of that redistribution, that doesn't work. And here perhaps the elements of an ethical conception of exercising power have been seeded, and I think we see some signs that this is having an impact. Now so at the end, what would I want to say? I would say that in terms of our political thinking, or in terms of social change kind of thinking, we need many more autonomous spaces where people can sort of exercise their moral agency and see, well, can we be more dutiful than the people that we see normally providing public services, and what does it take for them to feel more dutiful? And we need many more such spaces. And I would say right now the dominant discourse is really to empower the state and to make them sort of responsible for a large number of functions, which, as I see it, they're not able to provide. And I don't think there's any reason in the short, the medium run to see them provide. So,
Thank you, Ajay. We'll straight away request Asit Das to make his observations, and then very brief observations. Preferably no discussion.
Actually, I have never really read Gandhi or engaged with him very seriously, so I really have much to say. But I just want to react a little bit. I would start with Anita's presentation. When she started with Rinpoche's thing that to have total faith, then to proceed understanding, I think this proposition is very dangerous. Total faith means you totally give up your critical faculties. So it's like accepting one more religious cult, which will really give rise to a very fascist kind of social, political or cultural organization. So I have a lot of problem with that, having total faith. It's a very dangerous kind of religiosity. There will be no critical thinking. Then certain words like the Sanatana. The Sanatan word is very problematic. Like the word Hindu was given by Arabs, people residing. The kind of Hinduism we see today, and if it goes to, there was nothing called time immemorial. I don't think the Mohenjo-daro civilization was really Hindu civilization. But the Vedic period, the ritual, Vedic period really also can't, if you look at the caste structure, etc. today, it can't be called a Hindu period. That a total different kind of rituals to, intercaste, inter-varna marriage was permitted in the early Vedic period. Then we had different phases. We had Jainas, then we had a long phase of Buddhist period, and with the rise of Sankaracharya, the modern kind of Hinduism consolidated. So this word Sanatana is very, very problematic historically. In that sense, I would like again to talk about a little bit of Gandhian views of decentralization and Swaraj. When we talk about Swaraj in historical context, we also have a larger entity called nation state. How do we counterpose Swaraj with a nation state? That's a very fundamental question when we talk about decentralization. Then power over production and distribution in Swaraj. We know today we are living in a post-Fordist world of production. One single multinational corporation has factories all over the world, different units manufacturing different components assembled somewhere and sold. So we'll also have to redefine Swaraj in the context of extremely centralized production control now, the post-Fordist production control, and also extremely centralized authorities which are much more powerful than nation states like IMF, World Bank, etc., etc. That's the thing. And Gandhi as a philosopher, I was listening to the pre-lunch session. To be very honest, I really didn't understand anything. I have read little bit of Gandhi. I found him very simple, straightforward. He was a man of the masses. And Gandhi was, all his writing about Hinduism, etc., etc., one can read other people. But he was leading a mass movement. For that, he had to communicate with the masses. And masses had a lot of problem, right from casteism to everything. He had to write that. But so his language was very simple. So that makes even reading Gandhi attractive. But in the pre-lunch session, I really didn't understand. So it makes Gandhi very difficult, what I found. The kind of interpretation, mystifications, and it makes Gandhi very obscure figure, not a popular figure. So I really don't, I have a lot of problem with this whole academic industry of Gandhi. They may take away Gandhi from the masses. Then that's all I wanted to say.
Probably we need to have a different format of this seminar where Gandhi Mao debate can, because this that's Asid's favorite topic. But yeah, but he confined himself to the observations on the seminar. Thank you very much. Probably that was. Now, any observations? Narenji? Narenji had written a paper, Adivasiyat and Gandhi. Chair should record this. But for want of time, it seems that's missed. But that can be circulated after you make some.
Yeah, it was a draft, it needs to be developed, then it can be sent.
Yeah, maybe with today's discussion, as Dhirubhai says, with some osmosis, you will rewrite it and we'll send it to all the participants. Yeah, please. No, take your time, sir. The seminar is for people like you.
Thank you. I only wanted to make one request, and that is what Ajay, I don't know the full name. I only heard Ajay.
Ajay is enough.
Ajay what? Ajay is
Ajay
enough.
Singh Mehta.
Ajay Singh Mehta. I think what Ajay Singh Mehta was saying appeals to me very much. And I am not much exposed. The ideas that you were putting forward, they were, in my view, so very important. Can you please say a little more? That is only my request. Thank you.
That's a very good comment. Pradeep Giri.
No, some friends have category. As you know, some friends have categories ask me to react to them. I will not say objections, react to the commentary. Point is, as I told you in my introduction, my development as a political activist, my growth as a political activist, if I may so tell you, I was introduced to Gandhi by Lohia. And Lohia often compared Gandhi to Buddha. And they said historically it will prove that ultimately Gandhi will prove to be greater man than Buddha is, Lohia on record. And I seem to subscribe to that for my respect and for my admiration of Gandhi. But my contention was, but Gandhi's polity, Gandhi's politics, Gandhi's understanding of vocation, politics as a vocation, politics as a vocation is the most deficient part of his worldview. That was my condition beginning. That is why I brought Lincoln, I cited Mahabharata, I also quoted Krishna. Gandhi as a saint is no problem. But when saint starts becoming politics, not only that, politician, not only that, he has often described himself not as a saint wanting to be a politician, but rather a politician wanting to be a saint. Here Gandhi was not right. He was a saint wanting to be a politician, in spite of his self-description. There I think his moral scruples, my quality scruples, his spiritual practices were at times hindering him, if not more, to be a very, very articulate and, or what you understand, perfect politician that he could have been to face that kind of crisis, particularly after 37. Once the Congress had the elections, India had the elections, the priority of the Congress as a party had changed. They needed Gandhi very badly in the previous 2 decades. There nobody with them, no person with them who could mobilize the masses. And Gandhi's mobilization of the mass was chiefly because of his religious image. Chiefly he was taken as a saint. He had become a kind of god. So it's very doubtful whether Gandhi used Congress or Congress used him. I would say Gandhi was used by the Congress. And once there was government, that prospect of reaching government through other means than Gandhian method, Gandhi had become useless to them, which Gandhi did not understand at that juncture. We came to realize very late, and he started lamenting also. So what I was trying to say is there is a nature of government, and there is a nature of state, and there is also this nature of globalization, as IMF was referred to here, which I think in his moral dream, his moral fervor, or rather in his moral intoxication, he was often at loss to understand. Now, about Gandhi being Democrat and accepting partisan, that do not stand as a good argument, sir. Because that way Subhash Bose was also elected democratically. But Gandhi made Subhash Bose impossible to function. And you know all the machinations that he did. So you can't condone a particular event of Gandhi's life, particular deed of Gandhi in the name of democracy. I think as long as he could manage, he considered his Atma, his truth, his inner voice, on higher pedestal than the so-called democracy. At least this majority in democracy. At least the representative democracy. He was very critical of representative democracy at times. He was very critical of parliament in Hindu Swaraj, as you all know. So it's very problematic. And he was indeed a very great man, comparable only to Buddha, Jesus and Muhammad as prophet. But when you come to talk with political practice, what I insisted was, there has to be a greater research in that aspect of Gandhi. You don't even know many facts about that period. He has been deified long back. He is now about to be mummified. So our problem is, whenever a great man is there, we start relating to them through our ego, through our self, through our identity. We identify with them and refuse to discuss them critically. That will be a very sad day for Gandhi and sadder day for the Gandhians. Thank you.
Kaivara.
No, I was not asking anything. Sorry, I've been a bit away, so I'm not very clear. I come in when I understand something. That's good.
Thomas, can you wait? Panditji is.
Thanks. I mean, you have been so much critical and.
दोबारा दबा दिया आप.
I belong to such a discipline where nothing but critical thinking is there, so I appreciate the way you approach. But while talking about Mahabharata and Krishna, it was very nice to hear you. Amartya Sen also has written in Argumentative Indian in similar way criticizing Krishna and appreciating Arjuna and making Krishna instigating Arjuna and responsible for Holocaust of Mahabharata. So sir, I mean, this is my query. Do you hold the similar point of view as Amartya Sen holds? I mean, in that context, I mean.
We are not listening to two different topics. I don't know. You want, you know, well, I don't, well, with all my respect to Amartya Sen, I have great respect for his keen, analytical mind and his love for our culture, his simultaneous adoration of Rabindra and Gandhi both, and his approach on many questions from nationality to identity. But he has totally misunderstood the spirit of Gita. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
The spirit of Gandhi.
Spirit of Gita.
Gita. Oh, Gita.
I said Gita. Well, in that case, he may do better to read the interpretation of Gita by Gandhi. Mahabharata and Gita has been completely misunderstood by Amartya Sen. What he has said is what you relate to me. Thank you.
अच्छा, मुझे प्रदीप जी से पूछना है, हिंदी में पूछ सकते हैं?
बिल्कुल।
अच्छा, तो आपने जैसे कहा कि गांधी को कृष्णा के साथ और बुद्धा के साथ में, तो जिस तरह से महाभारत के होल सिनेरियो को देखते हैं, तो कृष्णा ने जिस चालाकी से पांडवों के फेवर में ही जितवाने के लिए जो पॉलिटिक्स या एक टाइप का वो किया है, और आपने कहा कि गांधी पॉलिटिशियन बनना चाहते थे या सेंट से पॉलिटिशियन बनना चाहते थे या पॉलिटिशियन से सेंट, तो अगर कृष्णा का जैसा ही ऐसा चरित्र क्या गांधी का था? मैंने गांधी को नहीं पढ़ा है। दूसरा, मुझे तो लगता है कि गांधी कृष्णा और बुद्ध से ज़्यादा क्या, अगर वो सच्चाई वाली बात है तो ओशो के साथ कैसे कंपेयर कर सकते?
दो लाइन में कहिए, पहले ट्रांसलेशन उसका करते हैं।
नहीं, मैं तो उनकी बातों का है। Now he has brought a subject. Of course, curiosity is always good, but the Vijay Pratap should be conducting more and more such seminars. Maybe about the modern relevance of Krishna and Mahabharata also. That is very good in the subject. Now, he is asking basically how can you compare Krishna, Buddha and
Osho.
Osho. Well, you might not be knowing, I spend about a month every year in Osho Ashram back in Kathmandu. You are most welcome to come and stay with me. There is an Osho Ashram in Kathmandu, very comfortable ashram, founded and run by my very close friend Swami Anand Arun. He was a direct disciple of Osho. So he has very wonderful ashram. I invite all of you to come there. Whenever you come to Kathmandu, you can have the address from Vijay Pratap. Now there is a whole complete volume book that Osho has written about Krishna. Krishna Mere Krishna. And then there are many commentaries on Gita by Osho. That seems to have been one of the early commentaries. Later again he has other commentaries. Now, first of all, even the type of Mahabharata, I know there are many scholars and there are many Mahabharatologists also in India, you know. So this is too vast a subject. And again, I am not here only to speak myself. We are basically here to hear from Ashish Nandi, who is an intellectual of a class by himself. So we'll discuss separately and let's finish it.
Thomas Falk.
He's from Nepal, so I can take the liberty of discussing.
Thomas Falk. Please.
I would like to make two separate points. I don't elaborate their relation, but want to, and I can't pronounce your name. Ajay. And the question of to create, is there something, I tried to rephrase a little bit, but to the end of your intervention, about the usefulness and potential of creating autonomous spaces where service can be rendered and a spirit of service, ethical resource be mobilized, which will then enable the better function of the civil society as compared with the state, and to do stuff which the state won't take care of, it, especially not the state in its present condition. Now, I can't say anything about the truth and the relevance of that in India currently. I'm very attracted by the idea, but I just want to report an experience which I share in this room more deeply with Kai Vara than with others. That 30 years ago, Kai and I, and you can confirm if you want, or then you can dispute the interpretation, but we were part of a movement in Finland which wanted in our part of the world to carve out spaces where people would engage in kind of community service for lifestyles and visions of the future, constructing practical experiments with visions of the future that would be less destructive than the current dominant mode. And we were a movement, and many people did so. We were very committed to that. And what happened to our surprise was not so much that we failed internally, even of course there will have been their difficulties. But what happened was that no, people didn't think that was very interesting. Some people thought, but most people thought that the caring state we had, the Nordic welfare state, was more interesting and less demanding. So there wasn't the growth of the movement, so it gradually, I mean, it's still there, the movement is still there, but it doesn't grow. And maybe now, as the European welfare state is under attack and the state is withdrawing from many responsibilities, maybe the space for that kind of activities will be larger. But it's a very sort of fundamental experience in my activist journey and my reflective journey that the kind of is it a strategy or the kind of intervention that you described, that it will not deliver much, that many people will not find it very interesting. So that I just put it crudely on the table like that and leave it to you to consider and pick up on if you like. With the second thing I'll do likewise, it's a question of validation. Now, in my mind at the moment, these 2 points I make are connected, but it's not obvious. The question of validation, I was very unhappy with the discussion we had about validation. I was very happy that Drew Bayer insisted on bringing it up. I'm also very happy with the point points made here that I think Gandhi has things to say, or maybe not things to say, but in his practice perhaps, there's resources for addressing the question of why we would go one way rather than the other, or why we would have such confidence in that rather than this. So these questions of validation are there, but I think we have failed today to address them. And I'll try to explain my theory and where I see the resource in Gandhi in a very brief statement. One is or maybe put this, I should compare it, it's Pradeep, it's your question about Lincoln and Gandhi. If Lincoln is the brutal pragmatic who achieves things, and Gandhi is the idealist maybe who achieves less. So which has greater validity in our view? And I would say this is a severe question. This is background. And now let me look at neoliberal politics today and the success of neoliberal politics. And I think nothing has been more successful. And they claim victory. They claim, oh, we are lifting people out of poverty, we are succeeding, the world is becoming better, technology and free market is delivering to all people. And they have a tremendously forceful argument. So in terms of, and now, if Gandhi maybe had 2 goals, he wanted to serve the last person in order to achieve self-realization. The neoliberals say, no, I'm not interested in self-realization and moral principles. I'm interested in serving the last person. So what I'm doing, without any self-realization and without any self-purification and any of that moral nonsense, I'm serving the last person, I'm lifting people out of poverty. See, if we give up, you have this grand agenda of 2 ideals. Self-realization through service to the last person, but I give up the idea of self-purification and all the ethical standards that you speak so much about. And I just do this other thing, and I will serve the last person. And my validation is that I'm serving the last person better than you are. So then I think the response to that is that the validity of having the larger ambition, where you have service to the last person as something you do in order to realize yourself, this moral aspiration. The validation of that, I don't see that anyone here has responded, but the response I find in Gandhi is that, well, the only validation is that nothing I can do. The only thing I can do is to, I can't, it's impossible for me to become a person who doesn't seek self-realization. And the only thing I can offer for you to consider why I persist with this agenda of both, in the face of the fact that neoliberals are serving the last person better than any Gandhian had done, the only thing I can put in the basket, put to you, to explain why I stay with this romantic nonsense moral agenda, ethical standards, self-purification, overcoming of obstacles of will, brahmacharya, all these things, non-possession, all this nonsense. The only thing I can put on the table is that I can't help it. And if I pursue this non-violently, if it's a mistake, I'm the only one who's going to suffer. So my suffering is the only validation I can bring, and it's actually only, so it's, in that sense, it's very subjective, and then you decide. So I don't claim validity. I just claim this, I'm helpless, there's nothing else I can do. I can't change myself from this point. And maybe you will help me to change me, maybe you will help to see my mistakes. So this is the kind of take I would have on the connection between Pradeep's and Nirubai's issues, so thank you.
Friends, it's all so overwhelming that I don't neither venture to summarize nor say my things or repeat. I just hand over the mic to Thomas to further carry on the discussion. Next session.
Okay, so we were supposed, in the program that we have been invited to, there was a title, Gandhi and Truth. Our 3 sessions. First session, Force of Truth. Second session, which we have just covered, was Difficult Truths, looking at these things from the perspective of political experience. And then they had announced that we have announced a third session on nonviolence and democracy and Gandhi's conception of truth. So we don't need to be, we don't need to see these as separate sessions. I'm happy if we see this at workshop and we can relate to what others have said earlier, but still, we make an artificial break. I do it right now, I know it has been made. And now we shift to the third session. And it will be introduced by respected friend Ashish and respected friend Niklas. So this is what I suggest. So have you spoken, Niklas and Ashish, who would go first?
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, Niklas first.
You know what has transpired.
Yeah. Maybe it's better that I'm not the last person, because
Last person is always
then I
good.
would feel even more intimidated than what I feel already. Let me start by saying I'm not sure how exact what I'm going to say is going to link to the specific topic of. But there's something I want to say.
That's more important.
And and I'll try to say it. I'll give you 2 kind of starting points to what I'm going to talk about, which is going to be, first of all, there's a sense in which I think, maybe to a certain point, to which I'm a little bit suspect in the fashion or maybe the spirit in which Gandhi has been discussed here today. And I may be right or wrong in that, but let me explain what I mean by this. Is that, especially when I read his autobiography, I get this sense that Gandhi is thinking, to the extent you can pose it as that he has some type of metaphysical theory about the soul, about truth and things like that. It's a very bottom-up thing in which, so let me explain what I mean, is that obviously Gandhi had some kind of a very deep ethical stance towards, towards life, especially in that the idea of duty, performing one's duty, speaking truth, and all of that. But I mean, as a young man, that wasn't in any specific way theologically kind of determined. At least to the extent when you read his autobiography, that doesn't come up. And then I'm a little bit struck about his description of his life in England as a student, and the emphasis it puts on his thinking about, economy, of how he should, not spend too much money. He walks instead, and he develops these types of practices, which, at least to his own, knowledge, are not so much motivated by some already, ready ethical kind of theory about how man should live, but more kind of practically orientated, if I put it crudely like that. And also similarly, I mean, the way he comes into his, both spiritual and political struggles, which seem to be somehow emerging at the same point, especially in South Africa, and when it seems that the way he starts reacting to moral issues at the same time have this deepening of his spiritual thinking, and on the other hand political practices. So in that sense, I mean bottom up, that there are certain, they're somehow more related to, call it direct experience or whatever. So that's the first point. Maybe I'm clear now what I'm saying, but maybe it'll become a little bit clearer. The second thing is that, and this is a personal note, that especially when it comes to Gandhi, but also I think quite much, and this might be more a thing about my own personality, is that I have a very hard time writing, and also especially writing about, putting things systematically, especially when it has to do with, important issues, which to me, and I think I get anxious and gray hairs already at this age from trying to kind of put my thinking, especially about moral issues, into systematic form. So that's what I'm going to try and do now, is rather to try and understand Gandhi and his idea of truth in its relation to ethics and morality, more by kind of taking giving you a kind of a confession. And in that sense, it's a kind of a confession or just simple observation from my own perspective. And in this sense, I could say that what I'm going to say about Gandhi won't be in any sense very theoretical nor metaphysical, and I think I won't be saying anything surprising either. Rather, I think there's something which is very easily recognizable for each and everybody. So with these notes, I'll begin. And my consideration starts with, or is related quite straightly to Gandhi's